Tonight we travel back to a time of marble temples and muddy streets, of senators in fine robes, children sweeping crumbs from the cracks in the stones. Welcome to ancient Rome, but not the Rome of grandeur and conquest, not the Rome of emperors riding in golden chariots. No, this is a quieter Rome, a more ordinary Rome, the Rome of ordinary people who lived, worked, and slept under the same sky you do now. So lie back, let your thoughts soften, and imagine yourself up in the heart of a city that never truly slept. Imagine yourself as a common citizen of ancient Rome, not a noble, not a soldier, just you, one of a million people packed into a city made of stone, dust, and noise. You awaken before the sun, not by choice, but because your upstairs neighbor is grinding grain again. The millstone rumbles above you, sending soft vibrations through the timber ceiling of your cramped one-room apartment. You live in an insula Roman apartment block, made of brick and timber, stacked 5 or 6 stories high. The walls are thin. The smell of old oil and last night's stew seeps through from the family next door. Your mattress is little more than woven straw. You shift, and it crunches. A rat scurries somewhere behind the wall. You close your eyes again, but sleep does not return. You rise. Carefully, there's no light switch, just the dim gray of dawn creeping in through the shutters. You dress in a tunic still, stiff from yesterday's dust. No one owns many clothes. Cleanliness is an ongoing challenge outside. The alley is narrow. Wet a bucket of waste tossed earlier in the night didn't quite make it to the drain. You step around it carefully. Your sandals, thin, soled, and worn, offer little protection. Your breakfast is simple. Flat barley bread, maybe a fig. If the market was generous the day before, you eat standing. Food isn't social in your world. It's fuel. Then, to work, if you're lucky, you have a trade. A leather worker. Or perhaps you haul stones for the builders on the edge of the forum. If not, you wait at the Forum Boreum Rome's hiring yard, hoping a merchant needs extra hands, or that a baker's apprentice has fallen ill as the sun rises higher. So to do the sounds, Rome is never quiet. Not truly. Street criers announce fresh fish. A poet loudly recites verses no one requested. Children chase each other between merchant stalls, and then there's the scent. Bread, baking, horses sweating, and the sour tang of garum-fermented fish sauce. Poured generously over nearly everything. The streets are a chaos of sandals, tunics, and raised voices. If you want to cross, you wait for a gap in the crowd, or press forward, head down, hoping the carts won't trample your toes. Sooner or later, you'll need relief, and in Rome, privacy is a luxury. The public latrines. Large stone benches with holes offer space for a dozen people at once. Beneath, a continuous stream of water carries waste away. You sit beside strangers, quietly with only a sponge on a stick for cleaning. Rinsed in communal vinegar, you do not linger. When your shift ends, or if the heat becomes too much, you make your way to the thermitha. Public bathhouses. These are social places. You pay a small fee to undress and move through a series of rooms from the warm tepidarium to the hot caldarium, and finally, the cold frigidarium. You bathe. You scrape your skin with a stridula curved blade, removing dirt, sweat. And yesterday, before heading home, you stop at the market, not to shop, necessarily, but to be seen. Patronage, social relationships, keep your world turning. You speak with your patronus, a wealthy man who offers you protection. In exchange, you offer your support when called upon, perhaps clapping at his speeches, perhaps voting. When allowed as evening falls, shadows stretch across the forum, or manned. You walk home slowly, past temples, statues, and scattered torches. The marble glows soft pink in the fading light. You return to your INSUL, a climb, the creaking wooden stairs to your room. Others are already inside, cooking, eating, whispering. You share your space. Always privacy. It's not a right. It is a fortune. You lie back down. The same mattress of straw. The same distant rattle of carts. Now permitted to roll through the streets by law only after dusk. You close. Your eyes, not because it is quiet, but because you are tired. Rome sleeps. In its own way, and so do you. The city of Rome, with its marble arches, dusty roads, and roaring crowds, was also a place of silence. A silence that settled over thoughts not spoken, and words that never found their echo. In this segment, we turn to one of Rome's most famous voices, a man who spent his life speaking, writing, and persuading, only to be silenced by the very politics he loved. Tonight you'll drift slowly through the life and the quiet fall of Marcus Tullius Cicero. Cicero was not born into the Roman elite. His family were equestrians, wealthy, but not aristocratic. He was born in 16 BC in a modest town south of Rome. As a boy, Cicero loved books. He memorized poetry, debated imaginary enemies, and admired the philosophers of Greece. He wasn't strong, didn't come from a warlike tradition, but he had something rare, a voice, and a mind sharpened by discipline. In his youth, Cicero trained under Rome's greatest thinkers. Philosophy, law, oratory, he studied them all. Unlike many Roman leaders, he did not rise by sword, he rose by sentence. His first major triumph came in the courts when he successfully prosecuted a corrupt governor named Verres. Cicero's speeches were elegant, clear, and devastating. Word spread quickly. Rome had found its new voice, and Cicero was soon invited into the Senate. In 63 BCE, Cicero reached the height of Roman politics. He became consul, one of the two most powerful men in the Republic, and almost immediately he faced a crisis. A nobleman named Catiline plotted to overthrow the government. Cicero exposed the conspiracy in a series of famous speeches. The Senate listened, the people listened, and Catiline fled. Cicero claimed to have saved the Republic. Some believed him, others watched with growing unease. He had ordered the execution of 5 conspirators. Without a trial, even in a city used to violence, that decision would haunt him. In the years that followed, power shifted. New alliances formed. Caesar, Pompey, Crassus. Cicero was caught in between. His speeches, once admired, became dangerous. A tribune named Clodius rose against him, a man who hated Cicero for personal and political reasons. In 58 BCE, Cicero was exiled. He left Rome quietly. His home was torn apart. His name scratched from public memory. He spent months wandering. Greece. Writing letters. Thinking. His words during this time are not those of a hero, but of a tired man, a man watching the Republic unravel without him. After a year, Cicero was allowed to return. The crowds welcomed him. His house was rebuilt. But things had changed. Caesar had risen. The Senate had weakened. Cicero tried to find his place, he wrote. He spoke, but he no longer held real power. Then, Caesar was assassinated. Cicero rejoiced. He believed the Republic would rise again, but it did not. Instead, civil war loomed. In this fragile moment, Cicero made his final gamble, turned against Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general. In a series of blistering speeches called the Philippics, Cicero attacked Antony's character, his motives, his legitimacy. The words were powerful, too powerful. Antony never forgave him. In 43 BCE, Cicero was declared an enemy of the state. Soldiers found him on a road near the sea. He did not run. He did not fight. He looked at them calmly and offered his neck. The silence that followed was not eternal. His letters, his speeches, his thoughts survived. His words would guide lawyers, politicians, and thinkers. From Augustine to Jefferson. From courts in Rome to classrooms around the world. And tonight, as you drift through his story, you may find a curious peace in the thought that a voice so deeply silenced still echoes gently in the quiet corners of history. The sun has set over Rome. The marble glows in the last light, but not all sleep. In the shadows, along narrow alleys and rooftops, quiet footsteps echo. The smell of smoke might be faint. A candle left unattended, cooking fire still glowing. This was the world of the vigils. Rome's forgotten firefighters. They did not wear uniforms of glory. They did not march in triumph, but they watched while others slept. Tonight we walk beside them. Rome, for all its splendor, was a dangerous place after dark. The streets were narrow, the buildings tall. It's often made of timber and plaster. Lamps burned oil. Hearths smoldered into the night. Sparks leaped from rooftops. A single ember could turn an entire neighborhood to ash. And so, Emperor Augustus created a new kind of guardian, forced to protect the people not with swords but with buckets. The vigils urbani were born. 1,000 men, then 7,000. Stationed across the city, watching, waiting, and ready. The tools of a vigil were simple. Buckets, often made of leather, axes to break walls, hooks to pull down burning beams, and vinegar used to wet barriers and slow the spread of flame. No hoses, no alarms, only strength and strategy. They carried strigils and trowels, torches and ladders, and they patrolled in silence. The vigils moved in pairs or small groups, lanterns swaying, footsteps soft on ancient stone. They listened for crackling. They smelled for smoke. In districts like Subarakramd with cheap housing, fire was not a question of if, but when. When they found danger, they did not shout. They acted quickly and without drama. Water was passed hand to hand. Crowds were directed out of alleys. When the fire was gone, they stayed, watching embers fade. Much of what we know about the vigils comes from fragments. In Ostia Antica, Rome's old harbor town, archaeologists found inscriptions, lists of names, ranks, and postings. There were decurions, captains, and stations outposts built in stone, now roofless and bare. In Pompeii, a mural shows men with water jars, thought to be vigils. Their tunics are plain, their faces calm, just as the job required. The vigils were not just firefighters, they also acted as a night watch. If you caused trouble after dark, you might find yourself escorted to a magistrate by one of these quiet sentinels. Some were known to extract favors, a bribe for faster help, donation to look the other way. But many simply served, quietly, repeatedly, through smoke and exhaustion. They were Rome's version of resilience, ordinary men, an extraordinary risk. Over time, the vigils faded, as the empire shrank. As cities changed, their role was replaced or forgotten. Their names, carved into marble, crumbled. Their stations buried beneath centuries of dust. But now and then, a piece of tile, a rusted hook, a tablet of orders appears in the soil. And we remember. As you lie there now in a room safe from flame, with alarms and exits in gentle light, think of the Roman night and the quiet men who guarded it while others slept. They watched the city breathe and vanish into morning. Rome was not built on equality. For every man who swept the streets, another dined on silver. For every woman who sold vegetables at dawn, another stirred rose petals into her bath. In this final segment, we enter the villa of a Roman noblewoman. She is wealthy, married to a senator, surrounded by luxury. And yet, not as free as you might think. Tonight we walk slowly through one of her days. A day of rituals, appearances, and quiet expectations. The villa is silent at first light. Drapes stir with the breeze. A slave opens the shutters quietly. You awaken, not to an alarm, but to the scent of lavender oil and warm water. Your bed is soft linen sheets, fine wool blankets. But your sleep is never deep, always light, always ready to be summoned. A maidservant washes your face. Another brings your clothing and embroidered stola, carefully folded, sandals cleaned with olive oil. Then comes the jewelry. Modest, but elegant. A string of pearls. A ring with your family's seal. And the hair. Always the hair. Braided, twisted, pinned. Sometimes it takes an hour. Sometimes two. You do not speak much during these hours. You listen. 2 footsteps in the atrium. To the sound of the household waking around you, your husband is already gone. To the Senate or to court. His voice today will shape the fate of others, but yours must remain gentle. Indirect, you receive other noble women in the garden, tortoise a place of clipped box hedges and small fountains. Together, you sip watered wine, speak of marriages, of dowries, politics, lightly veiled. One speaks of a daughter's engagement, another of her husband's growing debts. These are not idle conversations, they're negotiations. One misplaced comment might be repeated at another table in another house. The midday heat settles. Across the villa, like a soft cloth. Servants move more slowly now. Doors are closed against the sun. You retreat to your study. Not many women are literate, but your father insisted. You write a letter, dip the stylus, scratch into the wax. It is a small letter, but the act of writing brings calm. A scroll lies nearby. Philosophy, Epicurean perhaps. You read slowly, letting the words settle, like dust on marble. As the light dims, the villa awakens once more. A dinner guest arrives, another senator, with his own wife, trailing silk and perfume. The table is arranged in a semicircled reclinium style. Reclining couches. Servants weaving between trays of oysters, roasted boar, honeyed dates. You eat carefully, always mindful. Never too fast, never too little. Conversation drifts. From trade news in Egypt to a scandal involving a magistrate's niece. Laugh gently, smile when needed. You are not expected to lead, only to enhance. The villa sleeps again. You return to your chamber. The lamps are dim. The garden outside is still. A servant removes your pins, brushes your hair slowly. The sound is soft, like leaves in wind. You stare into the polished bronze mirror, not seeing, but thinking. Of your mother, of the girl you were, of the power you hold, and the walls that surround it. You lie down. The bed is cool now, your body still. Outside, a vigil passes. His torch flickers faintly through the window. Another day is over, another layer of silence added to Rome's long night. And now, as you lie in your own bed, your own quiet room, the ancient city fades, its voices, its footsteps, its fires and fountains and crumbling stone, into the hush of history. Perhaps, in some far corner of time, the echoes of those days still whisper, in marble corridors, in dusty scrolls, in dreams. Sleep now. Let the weight of centuries drift away. And know that while life in ancient Rome was never easy, it was like all things, woven with quiet beauty.